I'm staying over tonight. Please accommodate us. Hey, excuse me. I mentioned earlier that I'm attending a play nearby tonight. Since it ends late, I thought it would be convenient for us to stay here while her son is away. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law arrived with 7 friends. I wasn't informed and had plans of my own, so I tried to decline. But won't you be back soon? We'll just drop our stuff and go out for a bit. Could you set up dinner and sleeping arrangements for us? She seemed to ignore my situation and acted as if everything was settled. To top it off, I noticed the necklace glimmering around her neck. I had tolerated her bold behavior without confrontation for a long time, but I had finally reached my limit. I can't. I have a trip planned starting now. What trip? Who are you going with? For once, I responded with a firm no, surprising her. Fed up with her constant demands, I decided to draw the line. Please give me back that necklace. It was time for my mother-in-law to face the consequences. My name is Michelle Gorman, a 30-year-old housewife. After getting married, I used my administrative experience to work as a computer class instructor. My husband, Mike, is the president of a subsidiary owned by his father and stays busy most days. Sometimes he appears lost in thought, but I'm glad to see him relaxed, especially on our favorite movie dates. I feel lighter when I'm with you, he'd say. I was glad if I could ease any of his burdens. I wish I could offer advice or suggestions, but I struggle to express my opinions. Ever since I was young, I preferred listening to others than speaking about myself. My older brother, who is 4 years older, always looked out for me. I used to dislike that about myself, but thanks to Mike's reassurance, I've gained some confidence. Mike has an older brother who serves as the vice president in their father's company. His wife, Mindy, is close in age to me, and we get along well. She's a career-driven woman, both reliable and kind. Admire how she stands her ground and expresses her opinions, yet she is also understanding and adaptable. Seeing her confront the mother-in-law was truly impressive. However, since they live far away, I regret not being able to see them often. On the other hand, the mother-in-law behaves with the air of a company president's daughter, always confident, yet her stubbornness and arrogance are evident. Michelle, you're the wife of Mike, the president. You should quit being a computer instructor and fully support your husband, she reprimanded, overwhelming me with her pressure. Mike would back me up then, but she remained displeased. I sometimes felt relieved we lived apart. I hoped for a peaceful life with Mike and eventually to be blessed with children. But suddenly, Mike's father passed away from a heart attack. The news was so unexpected, it was hard for everyone to accept. Yet Mike and his brother had to think about the company's future. Mike decided to stay in New York for a while. I returned home and waited for Mike's call. With the added responsibilities on the two of them, I was worried. After discussions with his brother, it was decided Mike would transfer to the New York headquarters. His brother became the president, and Mike was appointed vice president. We searched for a house in New York and settled on a pre-built single-family home. Although it was a bit far from the station, it was in a less urban area, providing a sense of security. The house had good sunlight, promising a comfortable life with Mike having to work late due to the handover tasks for a while. I made sure to create a comfortable environment at home so he could rest properly and prepared lunches, considering nutritional balance. I wanted to do everything I could to support him, and just like that, a month flew by. I'm home. I'm hungry. Thanks for working so late. I'll get dinner ready. Thanks. Hey, Michelle. My mom said she wants to come over this weekend. Is that okay? I had been concerned that she might be feeling down since my father-in-law passed away, so this was a relief to hear. Of course, we still have some areas to tidy up, but she's more than welcome. Thanks. I'll let her know. Oh, maybe I should invite my brother and his wife too. Yeah, that sounds good. As inappropriate as it may sound, moving here made it easier for me to frequently meet Mindy, my sister-in-law. which was a pleasant surprise. That weekend, we all gathered to catch up on the current situation and share memories of my father-in-law. It's really sad that Dad's gone, but I felt I shouldn't be down forever, so I started taking up a hobby. Seeing my mother-in-law's cheerful face brought relief. She always carried herself with elegance, always wearing beautiful dresses and lovely accessories. However, since my father-in-law's passing, I felt that her strict remarks towards me increased. "Michelle, we're running low on drinks. Could you go buy some?" "Jessica, I can go get them." "Oh, can you? That would be helpful then." She seemed to be more commanding towards me than she was with Mindy. I thought she might be struggling with the loss of her husband, so I decided to observe and let her comments slide for a while. After dinner, Mike drove everyone home and the night came to an end. Since then, for some reason, my mother-in-law began visiting our home frequently. She started criticizing my housework and complaining about Mindy. Moreover, she began going through our fridge without permission, which left me stunned. "Michelle, Mike's so busy right now. You should pay more attention to the meals you prepare for him. What if he collapses too?" "Yes, I'll be more careful. Also, there's still trash here. Can't you clean up perfectly?" "I'm sorry." It continued like this. It felt as though she was picking on me just to pass the time. But when Mindy would visit, she'd quickly leave, saying she had other things to do. She said it wasn't because she disliked me, but I felt otherwise. Perhaps she found it easier to assert herself over me, who rarely countered, than over Mindy, who always spoke her mind. I thought about finding a job to spend less time at home, but even after finding one, the harassment from my mother-in-law intensified. "Michelle, we ran out of barbecue sauce at our place, so get some while you're out." "Oh, I brought a container with me, so let me take some leftovers." Her audacity sometimes left me dumbfounded. She could just as easily buy premium ingredients from an upscale store. Then an incident occurred. A necklace I cherished disappeared. It was a keepsake from my mother, which I had kept safely on a shelf in my room. The only person I could think of was my mother-in-law, who frequently visited. Though I didn't want to suspect her, she often looked around our home and probably knew where most things were. Despite searching everywhere, it remained missing, so I decided to ask her about it. That's when she responded with a fierce yell. "You probably lost it yourself. How dare you suspect me? What kind of person are you?" "I'm sorry, I searched everywhere I could think of, but I couldn't find it. It's a keepsake from my mother, and it means a lot to me." More than the anger I felt towards being accused, I was devastated about losing my mother's keepsake, and tears began to roll down. "I don't care. It's just a necklace. Why don't you just have Mike buy you a new one?" "It's not about getting a new one." I realized she wouldn't understand my feelings and decided not to discuss it further. However, incidents kept occurring where money from my wallet and other items around the house would go missing. Though I kept a watchful eye on my mother-in-law's actions, I never saw her take anything. Confused and emotionally exhausted, I confided in Mindy, who asserted that my mother-in-law was definitely the prime suspect. No one else had access to our home. The realization saddened me, yet there was no concrete evidence of her theft, and I couldn't understand why she would do such a thing, especially since she continued to live a lavish lifestyle from the inheritance left by my father-in-law. Seeing my distress, Mindy made a suggestion. Little did I know at the time where this would lead. About 2 weeks after speaking to Mindy, "I'll be off then. Michelle, just relax and enjoy your trip, okay? Be careful." Mike and his brother were going on a business trip to meet with a company from another state. Knowing about their trip, Mindy thought it might be a good time for us to take a break and invited me on a short vacation. Having been mentally and physically drained recently, the idea of a getaway was appealing. I packed early and placed my travel bag near the entrance, waiting for departure time. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Wondering who it could be, I checked the video feed to find my mother-in-law. Not only her, but she was accompanied by several others. "Hello, Michelle. I brought some friends. Please open up." Opening the front door, I found my mother-in-law and about 7 of her friends, all carrying large bags. "Were they going somewhere?" "We're staying here tonight. Make us comfortable." "Excuse me. Didn't I mention it? We're seeing a play nearby tonight, and since it ends late, we're all staying here." This was news to me. My departure time was approaching. "Oh, did I inconvenience you? I heard from Jessica that you were open to having us." I hadn't heard anything of the sort, and it seemed she was making up the story as she went along. Growing increasingly frustrated, I replied firmly, "I'm sorry, but I wasn't informed of this, and I have plans too." At my reply, she looked taken aback. "But you'll be back soon, right? We'll drop our bags and head out for a bit. Just prepare dinner and sleeping arrangements for us." Ignoring the fact that I had plans, I knew I couldn't let this slide. "I can't. I'm going on a trip." "A trip? With whom?" "With Mindy." "Oh, just with Mindy. You can go any time. We've come all this way just for today. How long are you going to make us wait?" Just then, I noticed something glinting around her neck. "Wait, that necklace you're wearing." To my astonishment, it was the same necklace that was a keepsake from my mother. "Jessica, where did you get that necklace?" "Why, it's just one of my collections. Is there a problem?" She answered with a smug look. "That can't be right. That necklace is a limited edition, and not many are out there." While I was exchanging words with her, Mindy arrived. "I was wondering why you didn't show up at our meeting place and didn't contact me. So this is what was happening. I'm sorry I couldn't get in touch." Mindy, seeing my expression, instantly knew something was amiss. "What happened?" "I'm upset because the necklace she's wearing is the same one as my mother's that went missing recently." "Oh, the one you kept in that box?" Mindy purposefully said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, trying to keep it from her friends, whispered to us, "Can you stop this? It's embarrassing. Do you want to accuse me of theft?" "Yes, honestly, I find it suspicious." Mindy answered firmly, "Do you have any proof that I stole it? It's embarrassing having such unreasonable daughters-in-law. Please don't make a scene in front of my friends." With that, she turned back to her friends with a smile. "Well, let's go inside, everyone." As she attempted to move inside, I remembered something. The initials. My mother's initials are engraved on the necklace. "Jessica, can I have a look, please?" Mindy quickly went behind her to check. "Enough of this. What's your mother's name?" "It's Kate Young, so the initials should be K.I." "There it is. The initials K.I." The friends looked horrified and stepped back. "Stop this. I didn't come here for this. Let's go, everyone." "We're not letting you go." The friends, sensing the tension, quickly muttered, "We're not involved," and headed towards the subway. "Wait, if it's some mistake." As she tried to follow her friends, someone stopped her. "What are you doing here?" "Huh, weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" Standing there was Mike. Turns out Mike's business trip was actually scheduled for the next day. To investigate his mother's actions, he had purposely given her a false date. Mindy had informed Mike about the missing items from the house after I had confided in her. Initially, Mike was skeptical, but upon visiting his childhood home and noticing several items identical to ours, he began to suspect theft. However, without evidence, he knew she could easily deny it, leading him to come up with today's plan. Inviting friends for an overnight stay was unexpected, but he was certain his mother would visit if she believed he wasn't home. "What do you want at our house?" "I was just leaving." As she tried to leave, I stopped her. "Give it back. That necklace isn't that necklace, the keepsake from Michelle's parents." "Why do you have it, Mom?" "It's not what you think. I found it in my purse. Michelle must have set me up." Seemingly fearing the disadvantageous position she was in, my mother-in-law suddenly shifted the blame to me. Do you really think such a lie would work? There's no way Michelle would do something like that. First, give the necklace back to Michelle. We'll talk after that." Reluctantly, she took off the necklace, threw it on the ground, and tried to run away. "Hey, wait." The three of us tried to chase her, but stopped shortly. We no longer needed to. "Huh? Why?" 10 police officers stood in front of her. I, too, was unsure about what was happening, just staring at the bizarre scene. Then one of the officers said, "We received a report from a local resident. They said someone who seemed to be causing a ruckus here was often seen entering this house when the owners were away. They asked us to come quickly." "What are you talking about? I'm the mother of the son living here," my mother-in-law retorted, looking annoyed. "Wait, what do you mean she entered when we weren't home? I never did such a thing." "I always come when you're home," she added. Did the informant say anything else? When we asked, the police mentioned that someone had witnessed my mother-in-law sneaking into our backyard, likely using a spare key to get inside. Indeed, we had a spare key hidden beneath a plant pot in the backyard. This realization gave us chills and also explained the missing items. Mike had considered this possibility and was planning to observe her actions while we were out today, but he never expected to find out the truth in this manner. "Mom, why were you coming into our house when we weren't home?" "It's all lies. You're going to believe some unknown person's story." "But you did have my precious necklace, didn't you?" "I told you I found it in my purse." One of the officers stepped in, saying calmly, "Let's talk about this at the station." "But I didn't do anything." "Mike, say something." "Mom, stop this. I can't understand why you did this," Mike said, clearly upset. Upon hearing her son's words, my mother-in-law collapsed to the ground. But just when it seemed like she had nowhere left to run and was feeling defeated, she suddenly flew into a rage. "Because after your father passed away, I felt so lonely, and seeing her always so cheerful, I couldn't stand it. I felt better seeing her troubled. I wanted her to feel the pain I felt," she confessed. Mike was red-faced hearing her irrational reasoning. "Mike, wait, let me speak." Feeling the need to confront the issue head-on, I stepped in front of an increasingly angry Mike. "I understand where you're coming from, Jessica. Perhaps I've been neglectful by always brushing off our talks. However, stealing is a different matter entirely. Did you want to upset me? Don't be ridiculous. Did you find joy in pushing someone to their limits with such a twisted and dirty scheme? Did that fill the void of your loneliness?" "Shut up. What do you know about me? If you're feeling down, then tell us. We can't read minds. Don't make fun of me. Why would I tell you anything, you worthless daughter-in-law?" She shouted back. "Mom, Michelle's right," Mike intervened, seeing the situation wasn't progressing. The police stepped in, suggesting they move to the station. Despite her resistance, given the eyewitness accounts of the unlawful entry and the suspicion of theft from possessing my belongings, the police decided to question my mother-in-law. She was promptly arrested on charges of unlawful entry and theft. She wasn't convinced, continuously protesting, "Get me a lawyer. I'm innocent, and I can't eat this garbage." However, when her father visited her during visitation, he exploded in anger, telling her to deeply reflect on her actions. To that, her attitude completely changed as she cried and apologized. Considering her typically carefree behavior, he seemed to be the only authority she wouldn't defy. He further told her that unless she sincerely reflected on her actions, she shouldn't think of having a home to return to. Reluctantly, she seemed to accept the reality. Perhaps losing her husband had left my mother-in-law searching for her place. Were her fancy clothes and jewelry merely armor to keep herself strong? I even began to wonder if her different attitudes towards me and my sister-in-law were just attempts to mask her vulnerabilities. However, her excessive desires and inability to control them is a separate issue. Making wrong judgments led to this unfortunate incident. I was surprised to see the event escalate to this magnitude, but realizing that she had been using the spare key to enter our house without our knowledge genuinely terrified me. Later, I found out that the couple living diagonally across from us had reported her. The wife, who works from home, had noticed my mother-in-law entering our yard suspiciously multiple times and found it odd. I'm nothing but grateful for their brave actions. Since then, we've been leading a peaceful life. Just to be safe, we changed our locks and stopped hiding a spare key in the yard. Mike severed ties with his mother and made her promise not to contact us ever again. If she attempted to, he warned of legal action. After her release, she returned to her rural childhood home and is now living a simple life, which is quite different from her previous extravagant lifestyle. My father keeps a watchful eye on her as she pitches in around the house from dawn. I hope she reflects on her past choices, which were sometimes overly indulgent. As for me, my father has moved in with us. He's here not only for safety, especially in case my mother-in-law drops by unexpectedly, but also because we're expecting our first child. With the imminent arrival of his grandchild, my caring father and the support of Mike inspire me to become a mother who balances gentleness with strength. While money and material things can bring satisfaction, it's the presence of loved ones that truly warms the heart. We're sorting out our living arrangements, surrounded by those dear to us, aiming to safeguard our peaceful daily life.
The phone rang, slicing through the silence of my modest living room. I, Emily Townsend, a 38-year-old working mother, never expected that call to shatter the life I knew. Emily, I'm leaving you. I've found someone else. Oh, and there's about $250,000 of debt in your name. Handle it, will you? Michael's voice, once so familiar and comforting, was now cold, detached. My heart sank. This had to be a cruel joke. Michael, what are you talking about? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, but he was relentless. You heard me. I'm with Claire now. She understands me, unlike you. Goodbye, Emily. And with that, he hung up. I stood there, phone still in hand, feeling as if the ground had been yanked from under me. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just for the betrayal, but for the sheer impossibility of the debt he'd saddled me with. Mom, are you okay? Anna, my 10-year-old daughter, walked in, her small face etched with concern. I forced a smile, masking my turmoil. Yes, sweetheart, I'm fine. But Anna wasn't fooled. She hugged me, a gesture offering more comfort than she knew. After Anna went to bed, I sat alone, the weight of my new reality suffocating me. How could Michael do this to us? We had a life, a family, and now I was alone, buried under a mountain of debt I had no knowledge of. I logged into our online banking, hoping Michael's call was just a terrible mistake. My heart sank further as I saw the near-empty account. Michael had drained everything, leaving only a trail of unpaid bills and maxed-out credit cards. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent hours staring at the ceiling, grappling with the betrayal. Michael, the man I had loved and trusted, had turned my life into a nightmare. And the worst part, I had no idea how to wake up from it. Before the turmoil, there was a time when laughter filled our home. I met Michael at a charity event. He was charming, his smile infectious. I remember thinking how lucky I was when he asked me out. Those initial dates blossomed into a whirlwind romance. We were young, in love, and the world seemed full of possibilities. Our wedding was a modest affair, but it was perfect. Surrounded by close friends and family, I felt like the happiest woman in the world. When Anna was born 2 years later, our joy multiplied. She was our little miracle, a perfect blend of Michael and me. Those early years were filled with simple pleasures, picnics in the park, movie nights cuddled on the couch, and Anna's laughter echoing through our home. I often found myself marveling at our little family, feeling a sense of contentment I never thought possible. But as Anna grew, so did the distance between Michael and me. It started subtly, missed dinners, late nights at the office, and weekends consumed by urgent work calls. I tried to bridge the gap, arranging date nights and family outings, but Michael always had an excuse. Then came the job losses. Michael's excuses grew thin as he hopped from one job to another. With each new position, his demeanor darkened. The loving man I married was slowly replaced by a stranger, one who snapped at the slightest provocation and withdrew into himself. I remember one evening trying to discuss his job situation. His response still echoes in my mind. "What do you know about pressure, Emily? You just sit at home taking care of Anna. You don't understand what it's like in the real world." His words stung. I had given up my career to support his, to be there for Anna. Didn't that count for something? As Michael's behavior became increasingly erratic, I returned to the workforce. It wasn't just for financial stability. It was to fill the growing void in my heart. I missed the connection we once had, the sense that we were a team. Looking back, those signs were there, warning me of the storm that was about to hit. I just chose to ignore them, clinging to the memory of the man I fell in love with, hoping he would return. The unraveling of our life began with whispers of doubt and ended in a cacophony of betrayal. As Michael's job instability grew, so did the tension in our home. His once sporadic late nights became the norm. Each time he stumbled in, reeking of alcohol, a part of my heart crumbled. One evening, as I was putting Anna to bed, she asked, "Mommy, why is Daddy always mad?" Her innocent question pierced me. "Daddy's just tired from work, sweetie," I answered, though I knew the truth was far more complicated. The final straw came when I discovered a series of receipts for expensive jewelry and hotel stays. Confronting Michael led to a ferocious argument, the first of many. "You're suffocating me, Emily," he yelled. "I need some space, some freedom." Freedom? Is that what you call spending our savings on whatever this is? I countered, holding up the receipts. He snatched them from my hand, his eyes blazing. "You wouldn't understand." "You're just a housewife. What do you know about living a life?" I stood there stunned as he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. His words, so callous and dismissive, echoed in my mind. Was this really the man I married? Determined to protect Anna and myself, I made the decision to return to work. My old job at the marketing firm welcomed me back, and I threw myself into it. The work was a welcome distraction from the chaos at home. Yet, as I worked late into the night, a gnawing feeling of guilt consumed me. I was missing precious moments with Anna, all because of Michael's selfishness. It wasn't fair. She didn't deserve this. The nights grew lonelier. Michael's presence in the house became like a ghost, there, but not really. His indifference towards Anna, his once cherished daughter, hurt the most. He was slipping away from us, and I felt powerless to stop it. It was during these dark times that I found solace in my friendship with Rachel. She became my confidant, my rock. "You're stronger than you know, Emily," she would often tell me. I wanted to believe her, but the shadows of doubt were overwhelming. As I lay in bed each night, listening to the silence of the house, I couldn't help but wonder where it all went wrong. When did the love and laughter turn into resentment and distance? The answers eluded me, much like the remnants of the happy life we once shared. Life, as I knew it, had become a juggling act. Balancing work, motherhood, and a crumbling marriage left me perpetually exhausted. Each day was a struggle to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Anna, who remained my beacon of hope. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I found Anna sitting at the kitchen table, her homework spread out in front of her. "Mom, can you help me with this?" she asked, pointing to a math problem. I sat down, the fatigue of the day weighing heavily on me. "Of course, honey," I replied, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in a web of bills, work deadlines, and the latest argument with Michael. As we worked through the problem, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. "Emily, are you okay? You sounded off at work today." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "I'm just tired, Rachel. Tired of everything." Anna looked up at me, her eyes filled with concern. "Mom, you're working too hard. Can't Daddy help?" Her question was like a dagger to my heart. How could I explain to her that her father, the man who should have been our pillar, had become our greatest burden? Michael's presence in the house had become almost non-existent. When he was home, his disdain was palpable. Our interactions were limited to brief, bitter exchanges, often culminating in him storming out to spend the night God knows where. The climax of our deteriorating relationship came one rainy night. Michael arrived home late, his clothes drenched, his eyes wild. "I lost my job," he blurted out, a mix of anger and desperation in his voice. I stood there, stunned. "What happened?" "They're a bunch of idiots. They don't appreciate me," he spat, his voice laced with venom. I tried to reason with him to discuss our next steps, but he was beyond reach. You wouldn't understand, Emily. You live in this little bubble, thinking everything is fine. Well, it's not. His words hung in the air, a testament to the vast chasm that had grown between us. I realized then that the man I married, the man I loved, was gone. In his place stood a stranger, fueled by bitterness and regret. The following weeks were a blur. I worked tirelessly, my thoughts consumed by financial worries and the well-being of Anna. The strain took its toll, and my health began to falter. But I couldn't stop. Too much depended on me. Then, one fateful day at work, the world spun, and darkness engulfed me. I woke up in a hospital bed, Rachel and Anna by my side. The doctor's words were a wake-up call. You need to slow down, Emily. Your body can't handle this stress. But how could I slow down? How could I, when our world was falling apart? Lying in the sterile hospital bed, a myriad of tubes and monitors attached to me, I couldn't help but feel defeated. The doctor's diagnosis was clear: stress-induced exhaustion, compounded by the early stages of an ulcer. But the real shock came when they found a small malignant lump in my breast. Mom, you're going to be okay, right? Anna's voice trembled with fear. I squeezed her hand, mustering a smile. Of course, honey. Mommy's a fighter, remember? Rachel, ever the supportive friend, was there too, her face etched with worry. Emily, you need to take care of yourself. You can't keep going like this. I knew she was right, but the thought of slowing down, of letting Michael's irresponsibility win, was unbearable. Yet the reality of my health situation was a wake-up call. I had to be there for Anna. As I lay in the hospital processing my diagnosis, my phone rang. It was Michael. His voice was as cold and distant as ever. Heard you're in the hospital. Bad timing, Emily. I need you to deal with some things. His callousness took my breath away. Michael, I have cancer, I said, the words heavy on my tongue. There was a pause, and for a moment I thought I heard a hint of concern in his voice. But then he said, well, that's your problem. I have my own issues to deal with. I ended the call, a mix of anger and disbelief churning inside me. How could the man I once loved be so heartless? The next few days were a whirlwind of tests and consultations. Amidst it all, Rachel and Anna were my pillars, their love and support unwavering. But as I lay there, a plan began to form in my mind. Michael had left us in shambles, but I wouldn't let him destroy us. It was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. With Rachel's help, I started digging into our finances. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. Michael had not only amassed a huge debt in my name, but had also been siphoning money from Anna's college fund. The final straw came when I discovered he'd taken out a second mortgage on our house without my knowledge. The depth of his deceit knew no bounds. Rachel, we need to do something, I said, a newfound determination in my voice. Rachel nodded, her eyes fierce. Don't worry, Emily. We'll make him pay for this. He won't get away with it. As I lay there, recovering, I knew one thing for sure. Michael had underestimated me. He thought he could break me, leave me to pick up the pieces of his mess. But he was wrong. I was going to fight back. Not just for me, but for Anna. And I would start by making Michael accountable for every single betrayal. The day I left the hospital marked the beginning of a new chapter. I was weak, physically and emotionally, but my resolve was stronger than ever. Armed with the evidence of Michael's financial treachery, Rachel and I devised a plan to confront him and bring his deceit to light. Rachel had been doing some digging of her own. Emily, you won't believe this. Michael's working at a tech startup now, and guess what? It's in the same building as my office. This was our chance. We decided to confront him there, in a public place where he couldn't avoid us. I wanted to see the look on his face when he realized he couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. The next day, with Anna safely at a friend's house, Rachel and I headed to Michael's workplace. My heart pounded as we entered the building. We found him in the lobby, chatting and laughing with a younger woman. The sight of him, so carefree, ignited a fire in me. Michael, I called out, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He turned, his smile faltering as he saw me. The woman beside him, presumably Claire, looked on, puzzled. What are you doing here, Emily? Michael's voice was a mix of annoyance and surprise. I stepped forward, Rachel by my side. We need to talk about the debts, the mortgage, and everything you've stolen from Anna and me. Michael glanced around nervously, aware of the curious eyes on us. Not here, Emily. This isn't the place. No, Michael, you don't get to decide that anymore, I said firmly. You've left me with a mountain of debt, and I have cancer because of the stress you've caused. It's time you faced up to what you've done. Claire's eyes widened in shock. Cancer? Michael, what is she talking about? Michael's facade crumbled. He tried to usher Claire away, but she resisted. No, I want to know what's going on. What debt? I looked Claire in the eyes. He's been using my name to take out loans, max out credit cards, even drained our daughter's college fund. Claire turned to Michael, betrayal etched on her face. Is that true, Michael? He had no words, just stood there, trapped in the web of his own lies. It was a small victory, but seeing him exposed for who he truly was in front of Claire and his colleagues gave me a sense of justice. As Rachel and I left the building, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead was still daunting, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the upper hand. Michael would no longer control our lives. It was time for him to pay for his actions, and I was just getting started. After the confrontation, our next step was legal action. Rachel, ever the resourceful one, connected me with a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer, Diane. She was a force to be reckoned with, and exactly what I needed. Diane pored over the documents I had gathered. We have a strong case, she assured me. Not only can we sue for the debts he incurred in your name, but we can also go after him for fraud and emotional distress. The idea of taking Michael to court was daunting, but it was necessary. He had to be held accountable. Meanwhile, Rachel kept an eye on Michael's movements. He's unraveling, Emily. Claire left him, and it looks like his job is on the line, too. Good, I thought. He was finally feeling the weight of his actions. The day of the court hearing arrived. Michael was there, looking deflated, a far cry from the confident man he once was. As the proceedings began, it became clear that the evidence against him was overwhelming. Michael's lawyer tried to paint him as a man who had simply made some financial missteps, but Diane tore through their arguments. She presented the evidence of his fraudulent activities, his draining of Anna's college fund, and the impact of his actions on my health. The judge was sympathetic to our case. Mr. Townsend, your actions have caused significant harm to your family. It's clear you acted with deceit and selfishness. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the verdict. Michael was found liable for the debts and ordered to pay restitution. Additionally, he would face criminal charges for his fraudulent activities. As we left the courtroom, Michael tried to approach me. Emily, I'm sorry. I looked at him, feeling a sense of closure. Your apologies mean nothing now, Michael. You're going to face the consequences of what you've done. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a sense of empowerment. It wasn't just about the legal victory. It was about standing up to the man who had tried to break me. I had fought back and won. The battle was over, but the war was not. There were still challenges ahead, my health, rebuilding my life, ensuring Anna's future, but I faced them with a newfound strength. Michael Townsend would no longer cast a shadow over our lives. It was time for Anna and me to step into the light. The aftermath of the trial marked the beginning of a new life for Anna and me. The victory in court was more than just a legal triumph. It was a reclaiming of our dignity and strength. Yet, the true battle lay in rebuilding our lives from the ruins Michael had left behind. I returned to work with a renewed focus, determined to provide a stable and loving home for Anna. She was flourishing in school, her resilience a constant source of pride for me. We had weathered the storm together, and our bond had only grown stronger. Rachel was a regular visitor, always bringing warmth and laughter into our home. You know, Emily, you're an inspiration, she said to me one evening as we sat in my living room, a sense of peace finally settling around us. I smiled, looking over at Anna, who was engrossed in a book. I had a good teacher, I replied, my eyes meeting Rachel's. We had been through so much, but her friendship had been a guiding light through the darkest times. As for Michael, his downfall was swift. The loss of his job and reputation, coupled with the legal repercussions, had taken their toll. He tried to reach out a few times, perhaps seeking forgiveness or pity, but I had closed that chapter of my life. I was no longer the woman he had left in shambles. I was stronger, wiser, and free from his toxic presence. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt and fear, but each step forward was a testament to our resilience. Anna and I had not just survived. We had thrived. One evening, as I tucked Anna into bed, she looked up at me with those big, bright eyes. "Mom, we're going to be okay, right?" I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be more than okay. We have each other, and that's all we need." As I turned off the light and left her room, I felt a sense of contentment. Our future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. The scars of the past would always be there, but they no longer defined us. In the quiet of the night, I sat by the window, gazing at the stars. Life had thrown us into turmoil, but we had emerged stronger. We had faced our challenges head-on and reclaimed our lives. This was our new dawn, a time of healing and hope. And as I looked up at the night sky, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, Anna and I would face it together, with courage, love, and an unbreakable spirit.